your cover of Knock on Wood became a
Yeah,
global phenomenon. But do
yeah.
you remember exactly that moment when you realized that it was starting to happen?
That moment when I realized that it was starting to happen, it was so funny because I was working on the West End in London. I was doing a musical. And theater is, I come from the theater, and theater is something that I've always loved to do. It's like a family away from a family, you know, when you're in the
Mhm.
theater. And I was still doing Bubbling Brown Sugar when Knock on Wood started climbing in the charts. And basically, the producer of the record company came to me and said, Amii, you're going to have to quit your job. And I was like, quit my job? Are you crazy? She was like, Amii, maybe you don't understand what's going on. Knock on Wood is climbing in the charts all over the world. We have
Sure.
got to go. We've got to promote. We've got to do tele. We have got to do all of these things. You can't stay here.
Mhm.
That's when it hit me that my life was getting ready to change.
You are preparing a new show with a new treatment for of your classic songs. Can you tell
Yes.
us more about it?
Okay. Well, this is a project that's called Back to My Roots. And it's called Back to My Roots because I have taken five of the most songs that were made in the R&B vein, which is basically my roots, rhythm and blues. So we took five of my tracks that I recorded in the 80s and the 90s, and we re-recorded them in a smooth jazz R&B vein. And I'm in the process now of recording new material to add to that project. So we have only five of my old R&B songs, which were basically very cool R&B songs. So I'm in the studio at the moment recording new material as well. And we're naming the whole project Back to My Roots. We're doing something that I've never done before, which I've always wanted to do, which is very small clubs. Normally, I do big venues. I do big theaters. I do opera houses. I do very large places outside as well. But I really miss doing those small jazz clubs. And so basically, that's one of the reasons why the material we put in a smooth jazz R&B vein, and then we're able to enlarge it and take it into the theaters as well.
You are going on tour with these new songs.
Yes. Yes. Well, I have two tours going on at the same time. I have my Back to My Roots tour, which is the quintet that I was talking about. And at the same time, for example, I leave next week and no, I'm sorry, I leave on Friday because I have three concerts, a continuation of an orchestral tour. So I do concerts as well with symphonic orchestras. And I take my music and all the music that I've loved, all the music that has formed me as an artist, and we put it all to an orchestra. So I have these two projects that are running that they don't conflict because one is a
Sure.
quintet and the other one is orchestra. So I can be both at the same time, and that's what I've been doing all summer long.
You are known mainly as a queen or a diva of disco music,
Yeah.
a musical style that in the late 70s began to be despised for many reasons, and that many years later, already in this century, began to be revalued in many sectors.
Yes.
So my question is, how did you see both moments? How was that fall and that resurgence of disco music for you?
Well, see, when the disco music fell, I had already prepared myself. Like I said, I knew that something was going to happen. I knew disco music couldn't last. And I knew that I could sing more than disco music. So when disco music fell, I had already started to try to understand where I could go as an artist to broaden my horizons because I knew I was more than just disco music. And so it was very difficult to convince people of that. And
Sure.
I basically had to stop. I basically just drew back and didn't do anything for like 2 years so that that image of disco music, the disco queen and all of that sort of would fade a little bit into the background so that I continue on a new road. I loved disco music, but I hated the fact I didn't want to die with disco music. So I think that because I had already thought about it, and I knew that I was more than that, I was prepared when that time came. It didn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me that disco music is back because it was absolutely the most fabulous time of music since the 30s and the 40s when you had the epic of jazz. Absolutely, there's no question about it.
Sure.
I know disco will never die. Disco will never die. It evolves and it comes back and it comes back and it comes back. But myself as an artist, I definitely did not want to fade like disco music. So I started moving
Sure.
before.